Like, I think that is the answer too, is focusing on what value do I bring to the audience.
That voice will probably be around your whole life, but you do have what it takes.
We fall so in love with results and not in the process that gets those results.
On this episode of the podcast, you'll discover the importance of truly understanding your worth in the filmmaking industry. You're also going to gain insights into setting clear boundaries with clients, ensuring mutual respect, and you'll also learn how to approach potential clients with confidence, professionalism, and clarity. All that and so much more. What's up, friend? Welcome to the Grow Your Video Business Podcast. I'm Ryan Coral, your host from Studio Sherpas, and I'm very, very excited that you are here today. If this is your first time to the show, welcome. I am genuinely happy that you're here. I launched this show 300 something episodes ago. I think that was like 7 years ago, maybe close to 8, with the sole intention of helping people that want to build a corporate commercial filmmaking business and how to build something that's sustainable. And the reason why I started it was because I've been doing this work in the corporate commercial space for a long time. I'm 19 years in this month, and I've made plenty of mistakes, and I want to share those, plus the things that I've learned that have helped us build a business that has generated over $1 million in revenue. We've traveled all over the world and gotten to do some incredibly amazing projects. And so if that's you, or if that sounds like you, if you're in a spot where you are ready to focus on the business of your production business, whether you're a freelancer or you actually do have a studio or you consider yourself a business owner, this is the place, and this is a great episode for you to be a part of. As you are diving into this world, I want to offer you a free download. This is something that I've created recently. It's a bunch of tools and resources that we use in the world of AI, ChatGPT, to help leverage the technology that is out there to speed up our workflow and really to try to add more value to our clients. So you can get access to this document totally free if you go to studiosherpas.com/AI. That's studiosherpas.com/AI. And I've listed out some of the favorite apps that we use at our production business. And then I polled the people in the Studio Sherpas world and just asked, what other apps are you guys using that you found helpful? And so there's an exhaustive list of all of the apps and the tools that people are using to not replace ourselves, but really to try to leverage the technology and to work smarter, not harder. So you can access that at studiosherpas.com/AI. With that, let's jump into today's episode.
What's up, friends? Hey, welcome to another episode of the show. I'm Ryan Coral. With me today is Andrew Mason, who is the founder of Small Pond Productions. Andrew, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Ryan. How are you today?
So good. Andrew has been a part of the Studio Sherpas world for some time now, and he's also in our mastermind, and he also has a voice that's smooth as butter. So please do not disappoint today.
Wow, expectations are high. I appreciate that. Wow. I'll take it.
I remember the first time talking to you, I was like, wow, you have a really good voice. Come to find out, Andrew, you guys have heard me talk about, I think you've heard me talk about getting things done. David Allen, that book changed my business at probably the height of my stress level, or one of the heights of my stress levels throughout my career. But very early on, I would go to bed at night and think through all of the things that I forgot to do that day, or did I do this, and don't forget to do this tomorrow. And it was just like for months and months and months, it was like that. And then I read Getting Things Done and started, I did the very first exercise that he recommends, where you just like brain dump everything that's on your mind. And I had like pages and pages of things, just like do this, don't do this, don't forget about, this, just like everything that was swimming around in my brain. And that practice was so stinking helpful. I felt like, okay, these ideas aren't lost. These things aren't lost. They're somewhere. and I started sleeping better at night because of getting
dude.
things done. And tell it, you produced that show, right? That's kind of like, that's one of your, at least for me, for you, that's one of your claims to fame. That's one of the things I get excited about when I talk about you.
Yeah, no, I got the honor of producing and hosting that show for about 5 years, and it just came at a really interesting and crucial time for me. Same kind of similar story, to yours, where first time I saw the book in a Barnes and Noble, just really didn't think much about it. Looked at it, said, "Oh, that's interesting. Probably for nerds. Don't need it in my life right now." And honestly, started reading about 2 or 3 chapters of it, and then said, "Nah, I don't think this is anything I'm interested in or need at this point in my life." But fast forward maybe 2 or 3 years after that, I had gotten to a place in my job, in my work, where responsibilities were increasing, and suddenly happened to glance across and see that on the shelf and say, all right, let me take a look at that again. Let me double check and just see if that's something that can help out. And my gosh, for me, the transformative experience happened actually getting to talk to David. Had him on my podcast, and he just kind of walked me through the process, and the switch in clarity almost felt like a night and day switch for me. Just like, gosh, I've got all this stuff in my head, stuff on Post-it notes. I've got, thoughts everywhere, and kind of bringing it back to a space of, okay, what do I do next? And how do we think about this with clarity was really, really helpful for me. So grateful. Yeah. Grateful for that.
That's so awesome. Yeah. It, definitely recommend that book. And I still practice in my like day-to-day, gathering of tasks and to-dos and like all of those things. There's definitely an element of GTD, as they say, in how I approach that. I don't do it religiously. I wish I did, because I probably would have more clarity. But when I am in a good headspace and I have the bandwidth, I'm able to do it, and it's always very, very helpful. So you've been in the Studio Sherpas Mastermind for, it's been a few, I can't count, but a couple of months, few weeks.
Yeah, a couple of months now.
What was the impetus for you deciding that was going to be something that would be helpful for you where you're at in your business?
Yeah, that's a phenomenal question. I think for me, had produced podcasts for a long time. Hosted the David Allen Show and the Omni Show, and had a couple of clients, but was in this space where, if you've ever read The E-Myth with Michael Gerber, that technician space where you're just kind of really working on the projects, working on the things, but not really thinking about what's the direction of a business. If I'm going to call this a business, where is this headed? The transition into business actually happened pretty naturally for me. From being an employee all the way up until 2018 in different various roles. Worked for a church for about 10 years. 3 years after that, worked as a marketing director. And then in 2018, my wife Logan and I just kind of sat at the table and said, man, we've got enough side hustle, side project stuff that we're working on here that this kind of feels like it makes sense. It's not really like ever that your chips are on the table moment where it's like, we risk it all and we started a business. It was just like, I think we could do this. This is great. And so that actually really, we saw success in that space, continuously for about 3 years. And then around 2021 into 2022, post-pandemic, started to notice like I hadn't been working on relationships, and just happened to come across a Facebook ad with Ryan Corl saying, does this sound like you? And you described, like, I don't know if I'm like the nailed customer avatar or what, but you described my specific situation about feast or famine, and you get a lot of work, and then it's the rhythm of it's off to where it's like and then now what? You find yourself thinking, oh, geez, I should be prospecting now, and all of these business things that, even though I consider myself to have some sort of a business mind, didn't really have anybody in the video space to help mentor, and so apparently I had no idea that Studio Sherpas and everything that you've been working on has been out for years and years. So I'm late to the party on this, but really, we jumped into the Video Business Academy, and there's like 3 or 4 things in there that were just like, value right there. The budget maximizer, the LinkedIn prospecting, and I won't give away the details on that, but just and let me tell you all about it right now. But just some of that just started up some key relationships for me that have just been so valuable. And I'm like, my gosh, this is exactly what we're talking about. So now how do we start looking at systematizing this and moving in a direction where it's not just Andrew working on this, but we start to think about scale. Do we want to scale? And answering those questions. But all of that to say, we came across a Facebook ad, and it was you, man, and you were giving away a bunch of free value. And all of a sudden, I'm like, this guy's authentic. Like this, I have a human being here. It's not like Ty Lopez or Grant Cardone, like against the Ferrari, like saying like this could be your lifestyle if you just hustle for the rest of your life. But
just do this.
But you came across and actually getting to know you too. Are an actual human being. I mean, like you're very accessible and authentic and approachable. So that to me was also a really attractive thing to be like, okay, this is somebody that I want to learn from, because if he's getting these results in his business and his life, and you don't see things like blowing up because he's devoted so much of his life to his business or so much of his life to his family, it's that things are out of whack, that this is somebody I want to be connected with.
Well, things are blowing up.
Hopefully
I just,
helpful.
try to mitigate as much as it's not all
keep the explosions
rainbow
off to the side.
Yeah. What would you say is the biggest? The mastermind commercial is almost over here. What would you say is the biggest takeaway or the biggest value for you being a part of the mastermind thus far?
Yeah. Two things. One is you give us access to just kind of contact you about any specific questions at any point in time. That's been really helpful, just to ask like tactical stuff about like gear. So I'm also late to the party in transitioning to video podcasts, and getting to find out what stuff I need has been really helpful. But also I would say the biggest value is the relationships that are in the mastermind. You also have like-minded people that are in there with you. And tactically, like really next action stuff for me, it was the specific question you had asked during my last hot seat, which was a couple of weeks ago. This question of, if it came down to it and you had to choose between, do you want to host, videos and host, events and podcasts, or do you want to be editing them? And if you had to choose one between the other, where would you dump all of your focus in? And for me, I didn't know the exact answer to that until that moment. And it became a moment of clarity for me to say, like, yeah, I do want to host things. I'm not, I may be a little less comfortable in the interviewee seat, but I want to add as much value as I can to your audience. But in my mind, that space of, okay, now I need to focus more energy in hosting my own stuff and not just hosting it for other clients. That was a level of clarity I hadn't had before. And that was worth a lot for me.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, to learn more about the Studio Sherpas Mastermind, just go to studiosherpas.com/mastermind. Now back to our regularly scheduled program. You're obviously gifted, talented in the world of podcasting and, working with people like David Allen. I mean, that's like so impressive to have that on your resume. In a lot of the work that many of us do, we're doing interviews, right? Not necessarily podcast interviews, but we're interviewing, we're filming interviews and asking questions. And some people are really good at it. Some people aren't. And some people think they're really good at it, but they're not. I'd love to just hear from you, like maybe some ideas on how to be a good interviewer. You have any like your best piece of advice on how to be a good interviewer?
Yeah. I would say making the guest feel as at ease as possible would be a huge slice of it. If the guest feels
before we go any further,
rapport,
I want you to relax, and I just want you to just take it easy for the next few minutes. Continue. Right. Yeah, didn't mean to interrupt, but
I like it. Making them feel comfortable, and if that, depending on who your guest is or who the CEO is that you're interviewing or the staff member that you're interviewing, that may translate to doing some extra work of maybe pre-sending them some questions. I don't always have the list of questions and say like, this is exactly what we're talking about, but I'll give them a grid of like, here's 3 or 4 that I'm thinking about touching on. And then from there, there's become kind of conversational stems that we can jump off of in order to follow wherever their energy is in the interview. Sometimes you can just tell somebody has energy about something in an interview and you're like, let's just follow that and see where it leads. And usually That isn't necessarily what I had in my list to begin with, but
Yeah.
9 times out of 10, it leads in the right direction. Does that help?
Yeah, I think that's good. Oh, go ahead. Did you have more? Oh,
I mean, I could say more. You want?
I think that, a lot of times clients of ours get hung up on like, well, can you send us the interview questions? And the style that we do is more documentary style. So we don't want people, saying, so that's our biggest fear. We just don't want them to sound rote, their answers to sound rote. So what we've learned over the years is that by doing, kind of what you're saying, like send 3, 4, 5 questions, depending on how long you're going to be with them, maybe send 2 or 3. And then sometimes I like to send we're going to ask questions. We're trying to get a soundbite that's, along these lines in describing that. And then when you're in the interview, it's like give them those softball questions that they have these, potentially rote answers for. And then you've got them for whatever, 10 more minutes, 30 more minutes, whatever. I mean, then ask other questions. If you can build that credibility and that comfortability with them, then they're not going to feel like you're throwing them curveballs. But I think one more to add to what you just said, making sure that depending on what style, like what this video needs to be, since our stuff is more documentary and it's off the cuff and it's usually people should know the answers to the questions. Like my job is not to try to stump people, not to try to think of wow,
Yes.
That's a question I've never even thought of. And now you're making me look like an idiot because I just don't even know. I was interviewed recently for a show and I had zero heads up what the even goal of the show was. And I was asked probably 3 questions. I was like, I don't have a good answer for that. And I just sat there. I'm like, no, I got nothing. Hopefully you're
Next.
editing this because
Yeah.
Any other thoughts to add to that?
Yeah. Thinking about, gosh, I asked a couple of episodes ago, so I'm, doing the Pro Guide show, and a couple of episodes ago, I asked Sal Segoyan, worked 20 years at Apple, brilliant guy, but before he was even in coding, he was into jazz music and had all these amazing parallels between jazz and coding. And one of the ones that he said kind of stuck with me, and I was like, man, that so applies in interviewing, is the creator observer. And so he's like, in jazz music, when you're playing, yes, you do need to be conscious of your own instrument and what you're playing, but you also need to be conscious of what the other people are playing to make sure that you're all kind of heading in the same direction. And so he called it creator/observer, this sense in which, yeah, you and I are having a conversation, but for me and Ryan just to be completely enveloped in the conversation without an awareness of what the audience is thinking about is, could be selfish or not give you the end product that you're looking for. So to have that space as to what is the audience going to be cognizant of? What do they want to hear? What are they interested in? As you're asking those questions, just to devote just a little bit of that mental space for them, will probably end up in a better product for whatever you're developing.
Yeah, that's great. Early on when I was doing interviews, I was very, I don't think I was a great listener because I probably had, 10 or 20 questions and I'm just trying to get through them a lot of times. Yes. And I probably missed some neat opportunities. How do you deal with trying to stay fully present during an interview without just, looking at your iPad or your notepad with the next question and just trying to get all of the questions answered?
Yeah, I think for situations outside of the one that I'm currently in right now, truth be told, I'm pretty nervous to be talking to you just because I'm not used to being in the interviewee seat.
Come on, dude.
Yeah, seriously.
You're doing great.
But yeah. But I think that is the answer too, is focusing on what value do I bring to what can we bring to the audience by highlighting what this person's talking about. And the second that you take the focus off of yourself and onto what the value is that we can bring to the audience, I think that is where the good stuff starts to show up. And it makes you less mindful of, how do I look? How do I sound?
Yeah.
Do I have something in my teeth? Those sorts of things kind of go. And if you do, please, I want to know about that for sure. But that self-focus just kind of goes away, and you start to think about what's the value that I can bring to this person in the moment. I think being present to them, it's just what you're aware of in that moment. So you're aware of what their needs are. And sometimes that's to make them more comfortable. Sometimes that's to ask a question that directs their focus in a direction that needs to help the video. it's different things dictated upon whatever's happening in the moment.
Yeah, that's really good. I sort of equate, if I'm going to do an interview for a documentary that we're working on, and I get 10 minutes only with some like really famous person, I'm thinking through, if I only get one question, what is that question? Because sometimes I've asked that one question and then they talk for like 10 minutes and that's all I got. So I want to start with the end in mind and think through like, okay, if I get lost in the conversation, let me at least walk away with what is it that I need. So it might be a question that I have to ask, or it might be a soundbite that I need to get. And if I have the soundbite, if I know what the soundbite is, it's like, oh man, this person, I really need them to talk about year one of the business. Like that's the one thing, because they're the only person that was alive then. So yes, I might want to, tell me more about yourself and what do you love, and like get them comfortable. But I just need to know that my mission for that interview is to get that one thing. And then if we talk about anything else, it's like icing on the cake, it's bonus, but make sure that I'm getting that thing. And then it's a lot easier to get lost in the conversation and to be fully present, because once you got that soundbite that you're after, then it's like, cool, like let's like continue the conversation. Let's go down that rabbit hole a little bit more and talk more about that.
I'm actually taking notes. This is really good.
Awesome. I'm glad. Yes, that's good. What would you say? What's your favorite part when you are interviewing people? Like, what do you love about that process?
Yeah. For me, I don't know if it's different for everybody. There's probably maybe two things that show up. One is, it's a little bit selfish, honestly, is I get to ask some questions that I'm myself am personally interested in. So in some ways, especially if you're doing a podcast, it's a free coaching session too. So it's just like, how do you make yourself better? You get to have that for free. Just add it in there. Why not, extract that value, because it's going to be useful for somebody else as well. I think the second thing is giving the gift of a question. It may apply less in corporate film, but it definitely applies in podcasting. If you have somebody that has been around a lot, they're well-spoken, they've had a lot of podcast interviews, they're probably used to giving the same answers, the same style of answer to something. So doing your homework enough to ask them a really, truly original question that's open-ended enough that it might give them the gift of having that insight. That to me is awesome, because you're like, I think something showed up in this conversation, and it might have been the first time that you've had that thought too. And it's truly unique and it's truly original. That to me I love it. That's the best thing ever.
Yeah, that's good. I like that. Yeah, the more background, I don't, for better or worse, probably for worse, I really don't do like any research on the people that I interview. I might sometimes like very last second, like hop on their website, and look at the front page and I'm like, okay, cool. Like I know all the things now. But I can see that if I did do that, how valuable it might be to, go to their about page, read their bio, and it's like, oh, and I have, a dog named Coda, and I love drinking black coffee. To be able to say like, hey, what is like, if you could only go to one coffee shop for the rest of your life, what's your jam? Or what's your favorite thing to do with Coda? Man, I love taking Coda for a walk. She's great. And that's the end of that story.
That's good. I love, one thing I do feel like is the soundbite stuff is great for credibility building. If you're interviewing a guest and saying like, here's why everybody in the world might pay attention to them in a business context. But the authenticity, where it's like, I'm asking you a question because I'm truly interested in you. I mean, they feel that difference, and that difference also comes through the camera, I think too.
I think, I've used over the past decade, I've used podcasts to promote, 3 businesses now. I'm on my 4th podcast that I've started. And they've been a great excuse to land interviews with all sorts of people that like I would never be able to get 5 minutes with them if I saw them, on the street or at a conference or something like that, because they're very important people and a lot of people want their attention. But for whatever reason, podcasts, they need to be on them. right? To grow their audience and their influence, to get people to buy their book or to hire them to, do coaching or whatever that thing is. So same as you, like I've loved having a podcast because man, for growing my own video business, but then in our production business, having a podcast, it's just opened some really cool doors. And, with our latest brand, we're really niched down in the higher ed space and having conversations with people that are influential in that space and getting to get to know them and getting to ask them questions like, what problems or what struggles are you guys facing, and being able to understand them better just makes me more of an expert, right? The more I can understand the problems and the struggles that you or your industry are going through, the more I can think, can video help solve that? And if so, how? And then how could I present that to people that are in this space? I mean, it's just been such a great tool for learning. How would you recommend somebody, that has a video business that's considering maybe that is an area? For me, it was a no-brainer. I hosted a radio station show my freshman year in college and just was like, oh my gosh, give me a microphone. And yeah. Awesome. I mean, just super fun. Give me a stage, a microphone, and I could do this all day long. Yep. So when we were trying to figure out how to promote Studio Sherpas, it was like, hey, let's do a podcast. And I was like, oh yeah, cool. I get to buy some gear and show up and record with a sweet microphone all day long. Other people might be thinking like, yeah, I could see myself doing that. I mean, with a video podcast, there's so much stinking content that you can create from a 30 or 45-minute episode. How would you recommend somebody start if they were considering starting a show?
Man, I would say, sorry, I'm just taking in everything you said too. That's
take it all in
too. I think I think the way to go about it, how would you start a podcast? I would say find out something that, if there is any intersection between what you do in the business and that you're truly interested in, because authenticity is really, really difficult to mimic, and I don't even know if it's possible. So anybody that I've had as a client that I've produced podcasts for or anything like that is, I really am interested in what they have to say or what they're talking about. Like there's no replacement for that. Yep. And so if you have something in that space that fits the bill for you for a podcast topic, then start to do maybe 1 or 2 interviews if you're thinking about an interview-based show. I'm not amazing, as one might guess, at just being a talking head and just kind of sharing opinions du jour on a certain topic. I feel like you're really, really comfortable with that, Ryan, which is why it makes a great, I literally listened to, while I was putting my daughter to bed 3 days ago, one episode of Studio Sherpas a couple of days ago was just like you kind of just sharing what the latest is in your business. And I was super engaged by that because I felt like having a conversation with me. And that level of connection that's there, it those are extra conversations you don't have to have with people again because they're now that connected to you. So it's the feeling like you have the relationship with the person that reads the news. It's like they don't know who you are, but at the same time you feel that connection because they're being authentic with you. So I would say for me it's opened more doors than cold email leads or trying to reach out and say, hey, I'm really good at this. And when people feel like you're in it just to give them value, my only intention right now is to add value to you, and this can become a piece of content that you can use to promote yourself. I think they're more receptive to that. And the return on that is just a better return because it's pull versus push, I feel like.
Yeah.
Did that even answer the question? I feel like I just kind of talked for a little bit.
Yeah.
But,
I mean, you started it with
kind of in that direction, but
you said if you can create a show that intersects with, your passion. So the first couple of shows that I launched for Tell Studios were really meant to allow me an opportunity to be able to meet people that I would hope would hire me eventually.
Yes.
So that was my goal, but then the show just it was too obtuse. It wasn't focused enough. We had good conversations, but if I would have just thought through, I don't care if anybody subscribes to this show. My goal is to have a show so I have an excuse to reach out to people to connect with them, and then I'll have a follow-up sequence and hopefully get them to hire us for video. That would have been smart of me, because otherwise I just kind of felt like, the show was kind of a failure. Nobody hired me, and it wasn't like a huge show or anything like that. But I learned a lot. And then the second show was a little bit more dialed in, but still too broad of a niche. And this show, it's like I'm having the kind of interviews with influential people inside of higher ed that if I was filming them for a brand film or for a testimonial piece or something like that, case study, that would be the perfect setup, right? It's like I'm doing exactly what I would be doing with them and trying to create episodes that are inspiring and encouraging for people that work in that industry. That's my goal. Also, I don't care if anybody subscribes to the show, because every interview, my hope is that person just shares that, or their marketing team just shares that with their internal team and encourage. It serves as an inspiration for their team. So that's my goal. Like, I'm not looking for subscribers or downloads or anything like that. Cool if that happens. That will just be like an aside, and that would probably get us more exposure. But my, for me to be able to reach out to people, like you're saying, I mean, I'm kind of flattering them by saying like, hey, you've got like a powerful story, and I would love to just have you come on the show and unpack that for us and talk about why you're passionate about this industry. I mean, that's a great.
That's it. I feel
for how I want to use it. It's probably the most in line with what we do as a brand, and we're just making it easy. We're making it easy on ourselves, marketing like this.
Gosh, so agree. I wish you say exactly like where I feel like that's exactly 100% true. Somebody says like, okay, you've just started your podcast in video, so you've had it for a long time in audio. You've just started your podcast in video. I've only got 49 subscribers. Does that make you upset or sad or like? No, that's amazing. I've got 49 subscribers. Yeah. So the other side of it too is exactly what you're saying about you're building more of the club that you want to belong to too. Right. So it's like you are paving the way for clientele that every time you have a future episode and they look back, there's this backlog of content of you interacting with their peers and saying like giving you credibility as the authority in a certain subject matter. All of that is super brilliant. So it's like, why not build that library that positions you in that authority space? I think that's really smart.
Yeah, that's awesome. So what's next for you in your business?
Gosh, that's a good question. Is it okay to say I don't know? Like, I honestly don't 100% know.
It is okay.
Because, okay, I will say that. Partially because I think it's all right. Gosh, there's so much pressure to have it figured out. And I know that I don't. I know that I enjoy creating podcasts, hosting podcasts. That's definitely a slice of it. I enjoy doing that for other people. I know that that's a slice of it. I enjoy stewarding brands, and if they haven't got a podcast yet, helping to become that voice for them and find out what that like really heartbeat of their brand is, as you say, the heartbeat of their brand, and being able to share that with the world and amplify it. I enjoy all of that, but I think that there's a pressure on us to say, in 5 years I'm going to be here, or 10 years I'm going to be there, and I don't have that answer. Honestly. I was just editing a show earlier today, and the guest, forgive me, I don't know who the guest was or what he was saying, but it was a soundbite that he had said along the lines of, we fall so in love with results and not in the process that gets those results. And when we fall too much in love with the results, we begin to hate the process because we see it as an obstacle to the results that we get. Yeah. So it's just like, great. Anywho, so I don't know, but I do have a show, The Pro Guide, that I'm really excited about continuing to interview leaders on. At some point, would love to have you on and just share your journey for Sherpas, and because that's a whole separate business that this is Grow Your Video business, but the business of knowledge work and the business of sharing something so that it's packageable online and can be distributed to a massive amount of people. There's so much in there that I'm sure you have experience and expertise with that people would want to hear about. But yeah, Pro Guide is probably next for the podcast, and continuing to develop podcasts for people that want them.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, we're winding down here. I have one more great question. Well, we'll see if it's a great question. I think it's a great question.
It is a great question.
What advice? This is like such a can like popular. But seriously, it is interesting to
Yeah.
think through your younger self. When I think of my younger self, I mean the theme that constantly, has just come up forever. Like even as a kid, imposter syndrome. Like I don't have what it takes, right? This person's like way better than me, so I'm not going to do that thing, or I won't achieve that level of success. So okay, but I'll still do it. Maybe I would tell myself like, dude, like everybody carries that. Everybody has imposter syndrome. Everybody has that soundtrack. Some it's louder for, and some they've figured out how to quiet it down and get past it.
Yeah.
And I would just encourage my younger self to say that voice will probably be around your whole life, but you do have what it takes. And just remember that the person next to you, the person ahead of you, the person behind you, they all have that soundtrack going on too. So you're all in this together, and take a swing. And it's okay to miss. It's okay to miss a whole bunch. But similar to what you're saying, like just like figure out how to learn how to enjoy the process, because that's where we spend most of our time. We don't spend most of our time on the mountaintop, right? It's like getting there, and we need to learn how to enjoy the process, even though the process can be painful and it can hurt a lot, but it's worth it. So there's mine. Hopefully that wasn't yours. What do you got?
Oh no. No, I've got maybe two or three that I lean on. I'm going to pick one. One mentor in my life said something to the effect of, "It never hurts to ask. Never hurts to ask." And he said to me, and this guy is, what you would imagine to be a rock star, lived in Silicon Valley for a while, moved to, I think, Hawaii, just in the tech space, and ridiculously smart, does a bunch of startups, and basically says you have no idea how many good things that can come your way just because you'd be willing to be the person that would raise your hand in a room full of people and nobody volunteers for something, and just like ask, like, hey, can I have this? These are the resources I need for this. And if you can give those to me, I can make it happen. The David Allen podcast, Getting Things Done, happened because I asked. We've gotten, deals on cars. It's just so many crazy things where it's like, it wasn't a given. And then all of a sudden, just because you happen to be the person that in the room that asked, and not because you're better or smarter or, better looking, which, it's given to you because you happen to be the person in the room that asked. So, for me, for podcasting, that kind of translated into, finding podcasts that had a large reach, that had a disengaged audience, that hadn't been doing anything for the last couple of months, and reaching out to them and saying, hey, I'm the best podcaster you've never heard of, and I would love to take a swing at your show and just see what happens. So it does not hurt to ask. It's a great piece of advice that helped me a lot.
Yeah, that's really good. Yep. It's funny because, again, back to soundtracks. Thank you, John Acuff, for that book. But that is a message that we probably tell ourselves, like, oh, they'll say no, if I ask, or they don't want to hear from somebody like me, or, who knows what things we're telling ourselves. But at the end of the day, even if they do say no, that doesn't hurt. It's like you were brave enough to take a swing and put yourself out there. And then it gets easier. The more no's you get, the thicker your skin gets. And it's like, you know what? Because eventually you'll get a yes, and you'll be surprised, and it'll feel amazing. And then you'll realize, like, okay, I can do this. Like, people will say yes, even though it's like, if it's one every 1,000 or 10,000 or 100,000 times, they will say yes. And you just got to keep at it. That's really good. Well, dude, this has been fun. Appreciate you coming on today. How can people follow along with everything that Andrew Mason is up to, podcast, et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah. I would say a great way to connect with me is if you want to head to proguide.io. That's the YouTube channel that we just spun up with the help of Ryan Coral. Thank you, Ryan. And if you're interested in having a podcast or brand with a show, or have a conversation about that or what that looks like, smallpond.productions. That's me.
Love it. Super fun, my friend. Appreciate you so much. And thanks for sharing with us today.
Yeah, right back at you. Absolutely, Ryan. Thank you.
Thank you again for joining me on this episode. If you want access to the links or the things that we talk about in the show notes, if you have feedback, shoot me an email on this particular episode. Is anything that stood out? I'd love to hear from you. You can email me, ryan@studiosherpas.com. You can also leave a comment if you're watching this on YouTube or on Facebook. Leave a comment under the video and just let me know, what did you like? What are you taking away? What action steps might you take? That's, I think, one of the biggest differentiators. You can listen to a show and just say that was good, or if there were things in here that you think could help your business, man, like take a second, write that thing down, revisit that thought or that idea at a later time and take action on it. Don't just consume, but do something about the consumption. Okay. All right. That's all I've got. I will see you on next week's episode. Till then, have an amazing week and see you soon.